But I must say, I'm probably one of John and Laurie's disciples, really, because Laurie, like John, has had influence on many farmers. Laurie had a big influence on me up in Katikati, so and helped us do a lot of work. So a little bit about me. My name's Rick Burke, of course, and I have a big involvement with the shed and beef industry, with Beef and Lamb New Zealand, and I'm just talking about that. And you've mentioned Dairy NZ, and we've got into Fonterra a little bit, but Beef and Lamb have a different philosophy. It's by farmers for farmers, so it's a bottom-up approach. So farmers, I'm on the Beef and Lamb Farmer Council for Mid Northern, which is Waikato, King Country, a little bit of the South Auckland, out at Onewhero and Pukekauri, and the Bay of Plenty. So we've got representatives from around those regions who are farmers, but we have outside people we bring on, like regional council people and that sort of thing, to give us different perspective. But Beef and Lamb are driven by farmers, and which is quite a different. It's a real bottom-up approach. It's not a top-down of as we see probably one of the challenges in the dairy industry. I'm also chairman of a group called Farmers for Positive Change, and that's only been going for 2 years. It's came about by what's happening in the Waikato around Plan Change 1, and some of the principles that have dropped out of that, and that are going to really impact on hill country farmers, organic farmers, and System 1 and System 2 dairy farmers who are trying to do the right thing, but are locked down because of their nitrogen footprint. So I'll touch on that a little bit later. But so Farmers for Positive Change is a solution focused, and sort of fits into what I'm going to talk about today. On the farm, we as we farm, we're farming bull beef, dairy grazers, and sheep. And I'll tell you all, we're supplying 18 houses with fresh water out of the top end of our farm. So anything, and the water we drink out of our tap is straight out of the stream. So how good's that? Yeah. So right, regarding improvement of water quality, it's a topic of the moment, and it's certainly a topic before the elections. So I just want to briefly talk to you about what I think success looks like, and what we think about is we can all look back 30 years. Most of us old enough, we can look back 30 years and see what we're doing 30 years ago and get a handle of what that looked like. We can also, if we really put our mind to it, look ahead 30 years. And so in thinking about what we could visualise our landscapes to look like, our farming practices and all that. And I think that's really important to get a vision of where we could go with this. And we've all, speakers tonight have touched on all sorts of things that just fit really well with this. So in my mind, we've got to sort of get that vision before we can find the pathway forward. And for me, it's like it's a mosaic of land use. It's that farming fits the land. We haven't got misplaced land use, dairy on steep hill country, things like that. We have vibrant communities, and we have profitable farmers. And the big thing, and a lot of you have touched on tonight, is getting out of that commodity trade and telling the New Zealand story and selling our products to discerning customers around the world. We can only feed 40 million people. Let's feed the most discerning of those people that are prepared to pay for a story that has integrity and honesty behind it. So how do we get there? In our case, we've done virtually all our environmental work, although, Laurie, there's still more to do, isn't there? There's also little bits. And for us, it's taken us, that's why I think about the 30-year thing. It's taken us 25 years to do it. It doesn't happen overnight. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But I had someone say to me at a field day last week, we need to sprint the first part of it to get people to understand, to buy in, and empower them to start to do the work. So we've been promoting what we call a sub-catchment approach, where if you think about it, those that are farmers here or even community people, we all know our local awa, our local streams, our tributaries, and we associate our little communities or around that, so we understand the history. So we think that's important in empowering farming and urban communities and industry to understand where we need to go. And one of the things, and Mike Joy talked about it, is getting, I'm going to talk about farmers, to understand what the issues are in those tributaries and streams. So how healthy is our tributary and streams, and what are those issues? And taking that back to our farms and understanding, and we talk about ecosystem health limits. What limits can we transition down to be sustainable? And nitrogen's a big issue. In many cases, we can identify that quite quickly, and by understanding our soil types, our landscapes, our slope, and all that sort of thing. So as soon as we do that, we give farmers some targets to aim for. And if they understand there's an issue around nitrogen in the stream, or E. coli, or phosphorus, or sediment, and they can get a handle on the trends, whether it's up or down, that'll empower farmers, because farmers will take ownership in that. And when you think about it, who's going to affect change here? It's not some CEO of a company or someone in Dairy NZ or beef and lamb. It's the farmers on the ground. They've skin in the game, and they will affect the change. So the key thing, and John's just talked about, is how you empower the farmers. Hey, John, how do you bring them on board? And it's all about working with them and not that top-down approach. So this is where we see the sub-catchment approach is actually getting ahead of the game, giving the farmers that target around that visualisation, perhaps in 2040, 2050, and aiming for it to improve water quality. But they need to know the numbers. Just talking about that, over in the Waikato, the Waikato Regional Council has adopted a grandparenting approach, and I'm talking about nitrogen here, where you'll get a nitrogen reference point based on your historic use of nitrogen. So this has created a whole lot of perverse behaviour, and you FERT guys will know about that, where farmers have realised this coming, so they've been loading on the nitrogen, the phosphorus, so they can get the numbers up high. So when that grandparenting comes in, they've got their numbers right up there. So for them, it's business as usual, just carry on. So you've got to ask the question, how's it going to have a meaningful effect on water quality? But if those farmers knew that if they were sitting at 70 kgs of nitrogen per hectare, and they knew that to get down to 30, they would, and they were given a reasonable time frame to do it, they would make meaningful changes to their farming systems. They bring in Kiwi fertiliser and things like that to try something different. But the Waikato Regional Council say we're doing this wonderful stuff. We're holding the line. Well, holding the line means business as usual, and there'll be no change. But we'll lock down those hill country guys and the low leaches, so they can provide fresh water to dilute the high leaches pollution. Simple as that. So there'll be no meaningful improvement in water quality in the Waikato. So that's what Farmers for Positive Change is fighting. So thinking about that, how do we incentivise the right sort of behaviour? And this is where, Jody, you talked about it earlier, change of culture. And I think that we've got to have a complete rethink, MFE, government level, around how do we incentivise and track science to the farming sector to make changes to improve freshwater quality, and to improve profitability, not production, profitability, so that we can go to the marketplace, we can get out of that commodity cycle to start to tell our New Zealand story with integrity and honesty offshore. So this is not new. There's some great stuff happening around the country, and who was talking about Nelson? Someone was talking about, yes, is it? Yep, and what's happening there, but we've got Raglan. There's a great story in Raglan, the Waikato themselves, and they're not even adopting those sort of practices. We've got the Pomahaka, where the council have said to the Pomahaka farmers, 30 in this type, in your landscape is going to work for you around nitrogen. You need to do stuff around E. coli, sediment and phosphorus, and we're going to give you so much time to do it. And we want you to come back to us and show your level of improvement. So this has empowered the community to get on and do the work. It's that bottom-up approach, not the top-down. So, and I think that's a real success story. The same thing's happened in Southland, where the farming's got together with the local community in Riverton. There's a guy, Dave Diprose, a dairy farmer down there, who's originally from Matamata, and it was a them and us thing. So they've got together with the community. How are we going to do this? What numbers do we need to get ecosystem health in our community, our rivers and our streams? So that's a bottom-up approach working really well down there. So these little sub-catchment things are starting to pop up around the place, and that leads me on to what we're doing up in Katikati with Laurie and Peter here around our Tamania project, and because we've done a lot of work with the regional council and environmental award winners, they picked on us to sort of lead the charge, but we're right in amongst it. We're very lucky to have people like Peter and Laurie and others helping with us. But the idea is to, just what I've talked about, is get the sub-catchment approach going, working with Zespri, the avocado industry, Dairy NZ, and get them to give an understanding of what the issues are in the region, and use the farm plans, might be the regional council environmental farm plans, as a tool to drive change. So identify what the issues are with their critical source areas that need to be fixed up on farm, or whether it's a nitrogen issue or a coli issue, etc. So, so we're in the process of scoping up that. Laurie and my brother and Nat are scoping that plan up now. So the idea of that is to grow that across the catchments, which we've got the Rere Takahia and what have we got, Uratara and Tahawai and Tuarapiro, hopefully, where Ricky's from. So and we've got a town that's now is a registered Eurotown, Laurie. Envirotown, Envirotown, and so that's a hugely powerful in terms of empowering all that community to get in behind this and go for that vision. So I had lots of other things to say, but a lot of it's been covered. One of the things we're doing that's really exciting, and Miles is gone, hasn't he? But just going back to what, adding value and telling that New Zealand story, the red meat sector is really pushing hard to get ahead of the game, and they want to leapfrog ahead of everyone else, because this pressure is coming from all directions. So they've through the government funding, the RMPP, the Red Meat Profit Partnership, they've got this working group to develop these QA standards. And Laurie and I worked on this years ago, and then it got biffed out by Federated Farmers. But it's like a raising the bar around environment, animal welfare, and community or social values, and getting farmers to develop their own plans on farms to achieve those levels. So it's really lifting the bar for farmers. So, one thing we've been talking about is how do you, rather than the regional council going, Big John coming in and when he was a councillor, beating up on someone guy and really driving regulation into him, how do you get farmers to change? And we've talked about it tonight. A lot of it's around the almighty dollar. So what if the red meat sector or the meat companies started paying maybe 20-30% more for those farmers that reach those high QA standards, and could take what they're doing in that story to the marketplace, so it's got real integrity and honesty, it would affect change immediately. And we know that, and we know that around the world that would work. So we see that as a really encouraging thing going forward. So I'm involved with that working group, developing those standards, and I hope to have them out by the end of the year, really pushing it along hard. And one of the things they're talking about is thinking about our whole farming practices. So part of that will be looking at regenerative agriculture. So you guys will be very interested in that. So we've got, in fact, we've got Christine Jones coming out in May. It'll be advertised. We're having a day on our farm to talk about, the carbon thing and all that sort of thing. And a lot of us farmers are doing it anyway. We've gone into mixed herb pastures, and we're not doing any baleage, but we're doing deferred grazing and all that sort of thing to build up the carbon in our soils and make our soils and our farming systems more resilient. So this is this change, and it's been pushed from the consumers around the world and a whole new way of thinking. So don't think that for any moment that we're locked into the system, because there's a whole lot of changes coming. So I'd just like to finish with that. So all good.